Hello guys, this is Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com, and we're here today with episode number 29 in our incredible new tutorial series where you're learning how to think like an engineer using the Arduino Uno R4 Wi-Fi. What I will need you to do is pour yourself a nice tall glass of ice cold coffee. That would be straight up black coffee, poured over ice, no sugar, no sweeteners, none needed. And as you're pouring your coffee, as always, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Sunfounder. Sunfounder is actually sponsoring this most excellent series of video lessons, and in this class we will be using the Sunfounder Elite Explorer Kit. Hopefully most of you guys already have your gear, but if you don't, look down in the description. There is a link over to Amazon. You can hop on over there and pick your kit up. And believe me, your life and my life are going to be a whole lot easier if we are working on identical hardware. But enough of this shameless self-promotion. Let's jump in and talk about what I am going to teach you today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you my solution to the homework assignment that I gave you in lesson number 28. But I must first ask, were any of you guys successful? If you were successful, leave a comment down below. I am legend. Double chest bump. And if you were not successful, leave a comment down below. I folded up like a cheap Walmart lawn chair. Okay. Now, I will admit, this homework assignment, I've taught you everything that you need in order to do the homework. But if you're a new person, this might have been a little bit of a heavy-duty lesson for your heavy-duty homework. So if you didn't get it, don't feel bad. I hope you tried and struggled and beat your head against the wall and tried everything and then just couldn't get it. Well, you're going to learn now how I'm going to do it, and hopefully it'll make sense. And I'm hoping a few of you guys that have been around for a little while, I'm hoping a few of you guys were able to do this. So what was the homework assignment? The homework assignment was to create a bouncing pixel on the LED matrix on the Uno R4 Wi-Fi. And so that is what I'm going to show you how to do. Now, what are we trying to do? We are trying to get you guys to think like an engineer. And so I hope that you were thinking like an engineer. And what does an engineer do? An engineer just jumps in and starts coding, right? No, an engineer does not jump in and start coding. An engineer always starts by trying to get things to work first on what? First on the scratch pad, first in the engineering notebook, and that is what we are going to do. So what do you always start with? You always start with a picture. Okay, so I'm going to start with a picture. And what is that picture going to be? It is going to be of the matrix. Now, I do not want to draw 96 pixels, but what do I know? If I start here, I come over how many? That's 5, 10. I have 12 rows. I have 12 rows, and I have 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8 columns like that. Okay, now what we have to see is that these are our columns. These are our columns, and these are columns what? 0 through 11, and that makes 12 columns. Now these are our rows, okay, and our rows go from what? Row 0 to row 7 for a total of 8 rows. Okay, now what do I have? I'm always going to have one red pixel. I'm always going to have one red pixel. Okay, so I'm just going to draw it here. Now, what's the first thing that I've got to keep track of? Where is my pixel? Well, my pixel is at some column value, which is the X value. It's at some X position, and then it is at what? Some Y position. Okay, so what would this be? The column would be the X position, and the row would be the what? The Y position. So now I'm keeping track of X position and Y position. Now, if I just kept running through the loop every time turning X position on and Y position on, and if X position and Y position stayed the same, what would happen? The pixel would just sit there. So what do I want? Every time through the loop, I want to increment the X position by some amount. Well, what am I going to call that amount that I incremented? I'm going to call it delta X. What does delta X mean? Delta X means the change in X. So what would I have? Every time through the loop, X position is going to be equal to X position plus delta X. And what would I say? Y position is equal to Y position plus delta Y. So delta X and delta Y are not the same thing. X is doing its own thing, Y is doing its own thing. Every time I increment by delta X and delta Y. Well, where would we want to start that? We don't have very many pixels, and so we would really want to start with delta X equal 1 and delta Y equal 1. So every time through, I increment X by 1 and Y by 1. So if I do that, the next time through the loop, where is the pixel going to be? Well, the X position, the column is going to move over by 1. And the Y position, the row, is going to increment by 1 coming down. And so the next time through the loop, this pixel is going to be here. So every time X position is X position plus delta X, and Y position is going to be Y position plus delta Y. So this is going to work like a charm, right? This is going to work like a charm until what? Until we get to the end, okay? And now what happens here? This is Y position has reached that last row. And if I don't do something, what am I going to have? I'm going to have a jailbreak, and that pixel is going to go off the screen and go out towards infinity. It's just going to keep going and keep going. So what do I want? Well, what I want is I have to see, where are the problems? The problems are down here when the row equals the last row, or up here where the row is equal to the first row. When I get to those two extremes, what do I need to do? I need to switch directions. How do I switch directions? Well, we're looking at Y. How do I switch directions? Well, I would make delta Y equal minus delta Y. And so if delta Y is 1, okay, and when I get what? When I get if what? If Y position, if that is equal to what? 7, the last row. Then what do I want to do? I want to make delta Y equal to minus delta Y. Or what is the other thing? If I'm up here and I've hit this one, I want to what? I want to go the other direction. So what does this mean? Delta Y is negative because I'm going up and I hit the first row. Then what do I want to do? I want to make it positive. Well, this same command will work. If it's positive, it'll make it negative. If it's negative, it'll make it a positive. So I do the if statement. If Y position is equal to 7, or Y position is equal 0, in either one of those cases, I want to change direction. Then totally separate from that, I want to do the same thing for the X position, right? Where are the problems with the X position? The X position is when the X position is at the first column, which is column 0, or the X position is at the last column, which is column 11. So I have a problem here and here, which I handle with one if statement. And I have a problem here and here, which I handle with one if statement. And so what I do is I just kind of just keep going through. I just keep going through, and I just keep that logic in mind. And if you keep that in mind, I think this should be pretty easy. Why? We're thinking like an engineer, and we're starting by doing things on paper. So let's come back over here. And let's see if we can get some of our coding going. And so I need to make this a little bit, make sure that you can see what I'm doing. And we start with the bare minimum. And now we're going to have to do a little bookkeeping here to get some things set up. But keep that note. I hope you took notes of what I wrote down over there. If you didn't, go back and write this down so you can be looking at it as we did it. What's the first thing we need to do? We need to include our library, Arduino underscore LED underscore matrix.h. Okay, no semicolon there. And then we need to set up our matrix object. So Arduino LED matrix, and I'm going to call my matrix matrix. You can call yours whatever you want. We will need a semicolon there. Okay, now let's go ahead and set up our baud rate. BR is going to be 115/200. That would be good. And then we're going to probably need a delay in there at some point, so I'm just going to set that up. I don't know if 50 is a good delay between iterations, but we'll try that. We can adjust that later. Now, we have to have an initial X position. Where do you want to start the pixel? Well, it doesn't matter. Just start it somewhere. So I'm going to say my X position is going to be 3, which would be column 3, which would be the fourth one over, right? 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, that will be my initial X position. And then I'm going to have int, and I'm going to have Y position. I'm going to set that at row 2. So I'm at column 3 and I'm at row 2, like that. Okay, you can set it wherever as long as you're not setting it outside the screen. All right, now I've got to set up those increments. So my int delta x is going to be equal to 1, okay, and my delta y is going to be equal to 1. Now, if you had a really high density screen, you might jump by 10 pixels, but because we only have 96 pixels, we're only going to jump 1 pixel at a time. Well, why don't I just say +1 or whatever? Well, it's because remember, when I hit the rightmost column, I'm going to make delta y as minus delta y, which will make it -1, and then it'll come back this way. Okay, when it hits the leftmost, then I'm going to make delta x equal to minus delta x, and then it'll go back the other way. And then same thing, delta y going up and down, I'll make it minus delta y if it hits the top row or it hits the bottom row. Okay, I hope I said that right, but I think you know what I'm saying. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down, and I'm going to set up my frame. So I'm just going to say byte is frame. You can call yours whatever you want. I call mine frame, and it has 8 rows and it has 12 columns, like that. I'm not going to put the variables, I'm not going to put the values in, because I'm going to put the values in with the for loop down in the main void loop. So I'm not going to mess around with that right now. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and do the serial.begin of the baud rate, BR, and then I need to start the matrix. So I'm going to say matrix.begin, like that. Okay, I'm going to run this just to figure out everywhere that I haven't put my semicolons in and silly things like that. Guys, you see, it's easier to debug the code if you run it every couple of minutes and kind of keep your code clean as you're going, because it's easier to find an error in a few lines of code than it is in a lot of lines of code. All right, so we're going to come down here and we're going to go to the void loop. And so the first thing that I want to do is, don't think about moving the pixel yet. Just think about, I want to turn on the pixel that is at X position, Y position. I want to turn that on. Well, I don't know where it was before, so somewhere out there I've got a rogue pixel on from the last time through. So I need to start by turning everything off. So I'm going to start by turning all the pixels off. I'm going to start with a clean slate. So how do I do that? Well, I'm going to have a for loop, and I'm going to step through, and I need to set I and j up here, my indexes. Okay, so I'm going to set up int I, okay, and int j. So I and j's I'm going to set up as my indexes as I'm stepping through the rows and stepping through the columns. So the first thing I'm going to do is for I equal 0 to I is less than or equal to 11, and I equal I plus 1. And what do you not like? I put a comma over here. All right. So this outside loop is stepping through the columns, but the inside loop is going to step through the rows and then increment the column, step through the rows and increment the column. And so I is the column and j is the row. And so I'm going to open that. And so this opens the for loop and this closes the for loop. So inside of that for loop, I'm going to put a for and then what? J equal 0 to j is less than or equal to 7, okay, and then j equal j plus 1, like that. And now I'm going to open that. Okay, so let's look at this. This closes the j for loop, this closes the I for loop, and this closes the void loop. All right, does that make sense? Okay, I hope that makes sense. So now that I'm inside this nested for loop, I'm just going to set everything to 0. So frame of row, what is row? Row is j, right? Column, what is column? I, and that is going to be equal to 0. So I'm going to step through the whole thing, and I'm going to set everything equal to 0. Right, so I'm setting everything equal to 0. But do I really want everything set to 0? No, I want one pixel on. Which pixel do I want on? I want the pixel at X position, Y position. Okay, the pixel at, I guess I should say Y position, which is the row, and X position, which is the column. I want that one pixel at Y position, X position. I want that one pixel to be turned on. So what would I say? I would say if I, which is the column, if that is equal to X position, and X is the column, right? And if J is equal to, what is J? J is the row. What is row? Row is Y position. If I'm at that magic pixel, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set that one frame again of J and I'm going to set that equal to 1, like that. Okay, look at that. All of them are going to be 0, and that one's going to be 1. Now, if I increment it, the next time through, I'm going to make everything 0, but I'm going to light up the new magic pixel, which is the old one that has been incremented by delta X and incremented by delta Y. Does that make sense? I actually think we should run it at this point, and the dot isn't going to be moving, but what should I see? What should I see if I run it? That this initial X position, so that should be column 3 and row 2 should turn on. So let's see if we can run this thing. Let's see if we're going to get any errors. I think it's going to run. Okay, we're going to come over here and all eyes here and nothing. Why do you think it didn't turn on? I set it equal to 1, but it didn't turn on. Why did it not turn on? I didn't render it. Okay, I didn't render it. So one time through the loop, I'm going to render it. Okay, what did I do? You guys didn't see that. Okay, so you see over here, I set it to 1, but I didn't render it. I only want to render it one time through the loop, so I do it the very last thing down here. I do it the very last thing down here. And so it's inside the void loop, but it's outside the for loop. It's outside the for loop. It's outside the if statement. What do I want to do here? I'm going to do a matrix.render bitmap. And what am I going to render? Frame. And I'm going to remind it that it has 8 rows and 12 columns. Row, column. 8 rows, 12 columns, like that. Now, let's run this. Let's come back over here. Looking good, looking like it's going to run. Looking like it's compiling, downloading, and boom, it still didn't render. Wonder why it didn't render. I is less than or equal 11. I is equal to I plus 1. Colon, semicolon, semicolon for J. Equal. Let's see. This is where the mistake was. Hopefully you guys saw that. Here's where the error is. For J equals 0. You use equal for a conditional. So let's come back over here and let's come here. Okay, so let's take a look here, and it is downloading, and boom. Okay, so this is row 0, 1, 2, and this is column 0, 1, 2, 3. So row 2, column 3, boom, that is what we set it up for. So we have that little part of it working great. Okay, now why does it just stay in the same position? The reason it stays in the same position is I have not incremented. The positions. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a couple of things. Okay, I'm going to do a couple of things. One is I'm going to put a delay in here so this thing doesn't go so fast. So I'm going to say delay of dt, like that. All right, and I want to make sure that dt is a reasonable value. What did I put the dt? dt of 50 I think should be pretty good. So I've got a dt of 50. And then what else do I want to do? Well, before I do the dt, what I need to do is every time through the loop, I need to say x position is equal to x position plus delta x. Okay. And y position is equal to y position plus delta y, like that. All right. So now I've incremented every time through the loop. I've incremented x position by 1 and y position by 1. So what's going to happen? It's going to go, and then what's it going to do? It's going to jailbreak. But this should run. But if we watch this, watch what happens. It's going to come down. It's going to come down, and then it's just going to go off the bottom of the screen. It'll probably hit the bottom before it does the right. So it's going to come down and just go off the screen. So let's just watch this and see what happens. Okay, keep your eyes on it. Don't worry yet. You'll see it go across. Boom. And what do we have? A jailbreak. It is down there, probably by this point, it's down to roughly South America. Okay, it's down to the tip of Argentina, probably. Now, what is the problem? I didn't put in there the conditions at which I want to switch delta x to the opposite sign. So what do I need? I need 2 if statements, and I need to do it above. Okay, I need to do it above here. So I'll go ahead and I'll render it. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to now change the direction. Okay, and what do I want to do? Let's think of the x position first. The x position is the column. If the X position hits the left, that means the X position is at 0. I want to change direction. I don't care what Y is doing. If X hits 0, I want to change direction. Or if X hits 11, I've hit the right edge. I want to change the X. I don't care what the Y is doing. If X hits 0 or if X hits 11, X is going to change direction. Okay, delta X is going to change. Now, if Y hits 0 or Y hits 7, it doesn't care what X is doing. Y is going to change direction. So how do we do that? Well, let's do X first. If X position is greater than or equal to 11, what does that mean? I've hit the right side. Okay, or, which is the shift, and above your enter, bar is or X position is what? Less than or equal to 0. In that case, I've hit the left wall. So if I hit the right wall, or I hit the if I hit the right wall or I hit the left wall, what do I want to do? I want to change the X direction. So that would be delta X is equal to minus delta X. So if I hit the left wall, my delta X was negative. Making it negative again would make it positive. It's going to bounce off the left wall. If delta X is positive and I hit the right wall, when it hits that right wall, delta X is going to become negative delta X, and it's going to go back the other way. Okay? We need the semicolon. Now we need to take care of Y. So if Y position is what? Greater than or equal to row 7, or that's if it hits the bottom row, or if Y position is less than or equal to 0, that means it's hit the top row. In those two cases, what do I want to do? In both cases, what I want to do, and you see this starts the this starts the if, this ends the if. What do I want to do? Delta Y is equal to minus delta Y, like that. Okay, so if I hit the right or left, I'm going to change the delta X. I don't care what Y is doing. If I hit the top or bottom, I'm going to switch delta Y. I don't care what X is doing. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Are we ready to run this thing? Let's see what happens. Okay, is it going to run? I think it's going to run, so let's come over here and let's look. All eyes on the LED matrix. Boom! Look at that. Look at that thing go, man. Look at it go. Bouncing off the top, bouncing off the bottom, bouncing off the left, bouncing off the right. Look at that. So guys, this was not that hard. This was not that hard, was it? Really, I don't think it was that hard. So, what could we do next for a homework assignment? What could we do next for a homework assignment? Let me think. Now, you guys just be thinking here. What does this look a little bit like? You guys tell me. Like, especially you old guys, what does this bouncing thing sort of remind you of? Like maybe something in the making? Can you think of something that is sort of in the making when you look at this? What does it look like? As I'm trying to put a few wires in here. Okay. What can you think of? What if I move this down and move this down? And let's see if we can back off some. Look what I have. Right now I just have 2 buttons hooked up. Okay, I have 2 buttons hooked up. But where do you think we're going with this, and what do you think is going to be your homework assignment for next week? Okay. What I want you to do, this is going to be hard for me to do, but I'll try. Okay, this is what your homework assignment is. Your homework assignment is to turn this into a game. Okay, yeah, I hope the game works. I need to get that reflection off of there if I can. So you see, I'm going to come over here, and this is my up button and this is my down button. So you see, I can move my pixel up. I'm the pixel on the I lost my pixel. Let's try running it again. Okay, can I go? Yeah, it's going down. So you see, what I'm doing is, yeah, I bounced it, okay? So you see what happens is, okay, I've got a little bit of an error in there. But what you see is that if I make my pixel intersect that pixel that is coming, if I make my pixel intersect that pixel that is coming, that pixel bounces off, okay? And then if that pixel bounces off, then what I have is I have a bounce. And then if the pixel is not in the right position, then the game ball, the game pixel, it goes off the screen and I lose a point. Okay, so what is this like? It's like a one-person Pong game. And what I think has happened is, I think, for some reason, you see I can make my pixel go down and I can make it go up, but I think I am hitting that wire. Okay, that went. Okay, let me see. Okay, you see I missed it, and then the game is over there. Okay, so what I want you to do for next week is create a one-player Pong game. Okay, a one-player Pong game with your two switches. You've learned how to do switches. You've learned how to control the array. You've learned how to do if statements, for loops, while loops. You've learned all the things that you need in order to do this. Now, I will give you a little hint. The hardest part is getting that thing bouncing around. You'll always bounce off the top wall like you have before, the right wall like you have before, the bottom wall like you have before, but you will only bounce off of the left wall if a certain condition has happened. And if that condition hasn't happened, then you sort of end the game or you do something else. Okay, that's your homework assignment, a one-person Pong game using your push buttons and using your Arduino Uno R4 Wi-Fi. Okay, guys, I hope you are having as much fun taking these classes as I am making them. Always want to give a big thank you to you guys who are standing with me on Patreon. It is you guys that are keeping these great lessons coming. You can also help me by giving me a thumbs up and leaving a comment down below. If you have not already subscribed to the channel, when you do, ring that bell so you'll get notifications when future lessons drop. And most importantly, share this video with other people, because the world needs more people thinking like an engineer and fewer people sitting around watching silly cat videos. Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com. I will talk to you guys later.